Hello and welcome back once more to Rage Gaming and a new things you didn't know in Baldurs Gate 3 episode. Today we're talking about some weird stuff, some funny bugs, and even more sadly patched tricks you could do before. And importantly, some really useful things to know. With all that said though, let's just get into it. We begin with an absolutely insane one. Nightmare fuel. Something once you see it, you can't unsee it, so I'm warning you now, this is eldritch horror stuff. Meet Astarion. Yes. That is Astarion. What you're looking at is the deformed combination of Astarion and a masculine gnome. Somehow, for some reason, Astarion transforms into this absolute monster when you do something specific. Look at his neck. Why is it so long and thin like a giraffe? The shoulders and the chest, they're warped too. It's like the chest's caving in. It comes from the comments, this one, thanks to Kyrax for this abomination. Their guide on how to do it was simple. You use a spell or shapeshift in some kind of way, and then pick a gnome form for Astarion. Then you bring your party back to camp and go speak to Astarion while he's in that silly gnome form. Just by having a conversation with him about anything, during that, he will suddenly begin to grow, like his body's out of control and it begins to stretch and warp into what is almost his own body, but certainly not quite, resulting in this strange monstrosity, the half Astarion gnome combo. So fantastic find, Kyrax. Nightmare fuel for sure. But in reply to this, the user Bill Wumpson said that this works with every normal sized character. So I went out my way and tried to do it with a bunch of different characters and it just didn't seem to work for me. So either I'm missing something or it is indeed specifically a bug with Astarion. Either way, enjoy this one while you can because surely they'll remove this horrible thing. But moving on from that, the next thing we have is incredibly useful, and I had no idea about this until a comment from one of the previous episodes. People in reply to it were baffled by it, so I imagine a lot of people don't know it. Alright, so recently I talked about the Shapeshifters Ring. It provides that incredible perk of +4 to checks while you actively shapeshift and have the ring on. The problem here is to actually get the ring. Well, it was believed by me and a lot of people, it would seem, is that you need to kill the strange ox to get it, the one you find in Emerald Grove in Act 1, but he also shows up in Act 2 and 3. It sucks to kill him because the ox has more to offer, there's more to his storyline, but there is an issue with another NPC not showing up if you do kill the ox early in Act 1, and in general you miss out on some stuff. But it was the commenter AskZCH who left this incredible comment. It turns out you don't need to kill the ox to get the ring or his other items at all. Just use this trick to trade with him and then buy the ring with him without messing all of his storyline up. To do it, I just followed this information from Ask. Speak with him, probably using animal speech via like a spell or a potion, and have a positive interaction. After that, you deal damage to him to start combat, but obviously make sure you don't one-hit kill him. Before you do that, I recommend you move your party away from the situation so they're not involved in the combat and you can just die faster, because you need the ox and whoever's around to actually kill you. At that point, you go back to your camp with your party and res the dead character and then return, speaking with the strange ox again, who is understandably a bit mad with you at that point, but he wants you to make up for it, which results in the ability to trade with him. If you do this at Act 1, which is, to be honest, the best time to do it to get it as soon as possible, the ring's going to be all he has, and I was able to buy that ring for 149 gold at the time, though my charisma level may have affected that. So with that, you can get the ring as early as Act 1 without all the horrible consequences that could happen if you chose to kill it. So, brilliant to know. Moving on from those two very unexpected things, here's one that makes a lot of sense if you stop and think about it. Maybe people who are more versed in D&D are going to think this is obvious, but to me, it's a useful tip that I just didn't think about. In short, throughout the comments of this series, I've been hearing about how amazing spiders are, and there's been lots of different comments and tips to do with them. They serve a lot of different purposes, but none of them really fit in the series until we talked about specifically their web and how it mitigates fall damage. Meaning you don't just use the web to web people, but you can place it as sort of a trampoline or landing spot, even from massive distances, because you can cast these spells from far. And then if you jump down onto it, you will completely stop any fall damage. Jumps that would do nasty damage or even kill you, you can prep with a web and avoid it. So whether you're a druid in spider form or a ranger who has a spider companion maybe, or maybe you're actually a caster like a sorcerer or wizard, you can cast web where you're going to jump, which will stop all the fall damage. Though, to be fair, if you are a caster, you probably have access to Slowfall, which is an alternative that maybe is better, but it's nice to have an alternative to Slowfall, especially if you didn't have Slowfall in the group at the time. And it's always good to know there are multiple ways to avoid fall damage, because there are some big jumps in this game. Next up, I want to follow up on a topic I talked about with the magic focus thing video I made. In that, I expressed how in late game I found myself looting a lot less in general, which results in me finding next to no food items compared to when before, when I was looting everything, I'd have loads of them. To overcome that, I talked about the awesome level 6 spell, the Hero's Feast, which actually spawns in a crate of about 50 food supplies while also giving you a very potent buff for the next long rest. When we talked about that, an alternative was brought up, especially with how, as a level 6 spell, that's not a fair option in the early or even mid game, to be honest. What can you do earlier than that? Well, there's one spell, the Good Berry, which creates a useful item that you can consume. It goes into your inventory and provides a small heal. Something I've totally missed about that spell, because to be honest, I've not really played a Druid in my party much, is that it's a technical food item, which means you can pick it when you're going for a long rest. If you have spell slots remaining before you go for the long rest, then you could use all the remaining spell slots to generate as many of these good berries as you can. This could really help you mitigate the food resources you're using each time, providing a buffer. And if you're doing this every time as you're leveling up, you'll actually start to overstock on them. As you level up, you have higher level spell slots, you can make more of them, and maybe you could completely stop the need for having actual food supplies just using good berries. Having said that, it would take quite a bit of time to generate enough every time, bit of a pain in the butt. I would recommend once you have level 11 on any character, swapping in a Druid or a Hireling just to cast Hero's Feast all the same, because it's just better and easier, but good berries are a good thing to use in the meantime. Next up, I have one that's a bit of a PSA because something is no longer working how it used to, and it was useful, sadly. So recently I covered how you could dupe weapons using the statue you buy at the circus in Act 3. That has been patched, and so lots of comments were talking about how there was another dupe method you could use. This one's found in Act 2, during the self-same trial in the Gauntlet of Shar, where you face clones of yourself in the party. So when you go in, you clone yourself and the gear you're currently wearing, meaning you could steal the weapon from your clone and then use it. However, there was a trick to make that work. You'd need the dual wielder feat, which allows you to hold multiple weapons that aren't just light weapons. Now, because clones don't have feats, they'd be unable to do that, which would force them to drop whatever main hand weapon they had at the time, which would then let us steal it. So what you could do, like I'm doing here, is take the legendary mace, the Blood of Lathander, and then just use a non-light weapon in my offhand to force the legendary to be the duplicate target. But again, this has been fixed in a recent patch, and so this is why it's more of a PSA. You can't do this anymore. A lot of comments were debating whether it's true or not that it's been fixed, and personally, I've gone and tested this in a bunch of different ways, and I just cannot recreate it. It's interesting, the weapons seem to zip out of existence, like they're being deleted. It was highlighted, in fact, in the patch notes that this was causing an issue. Obviously, their solution to the dupe method was to delete weapons that aren't equipped in that area, but that then meant that your weapons were being deleted if you ever got disarmed. Not good. So they've fixed that now as well. Ultimately, though, if I ever disarmed an enemy in this area, the weapons basically evaporate. And using the old dual wield method just seems to delete the main hand weapon the moment the clone even spawns in. So interesting to look at and be aware of. I wasn't aware of this dupe method until now, but also be aware it's gone from the game if you were using it. Alright, last up is a quick thing I've been meaning to include in the series for a while. In Act 1, there's this incredible weapon, the Knife of the Undermountain King. You can get it from the Quartermaster in the Githyanki Creche in the Mountain Pass region. Basically, it has the lovely name passive, Organ Rearranger, which means you'll be able to roll an attack, and if it rolls 19, it'll cause a crit, which is normally required a roll of 20. You can combine that with other weapons and passives like that, or say the class passives of, say, Champion, the subclass of Fighters. Anyway, the thing here that matters is that passive works in general. I thought originally you'd need to attack with this specific short sword for that passive to take place. But if you were to say attack with an offhand or a different weapon, it wouldn't work. Turns out that's not true. Simply by having the weapon equipped, other weapon attacks will benefit from that passive, whether you're using yet an offhand or a different weapon entirely, like a bow in this example. The passive is working because I have the sword equipped, and so it's taking effect and making it so if I roll a 19 with the bow shot, it will indeed crit. Beyond this specific weapon, this highlights how passives just work when they're actively equipped, not specifically tied to that item or specifically weapons. if it's in use. So I think it's a handy one to at least know about for making builds and considering gear in general. And it's something I heard about, it must have been the first month of the game's release, and now I finally have had time to talk about it. But there you have it, another episode down and more things I didn't know until recently, shared once more. As always, thank you to everyone making this series possible with the comments and follow-ups to things we talk about. If you have anything you think should be in the series or something to add based on things we talked about before, then let us know. If you want to help out but don't have something yourself, you could scroll down to the comments of this video and thumbs up any comments that have good ideas you'd like to see. But for now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.